Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. It is great to see everyone who is here in the chat. Thank you for coming, Fran, Asexual Atheist, and B. Taram was here a few minutes ago but had to go. And thank you so much to my guest, Jaded Atheist. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. I was on a different page as we were starting because I was afraid that might happen, but I got it fixed now. Okay, very good. For those of you who were wondering about my 2,000 subscriber celebration, because last week while I was on stream, if anyone saw that, Cynthia McDonald said no one was leaving until I got over 2,000 subscribers because I had been too short for like 2 weeks. And when she said that, 3 people subscribed, and then I had 2001. And so we talked about doing a 2,000 subscriber celebration, but just an hour after the stream was over, I looked again and I was back to 1,997 again. And I'm at 1,998 again, but nope, no 2,000 subscriber celebration yet. I am still too short. So if anyone has 2 friends that might be willing to subscribe, we can get back to that 2,000, and then we can have the 2,000 subscriber celebration. Okay, my guest here today, Jaded Atheist, is one of the newest members of the community. And I saw somebody post on Twitter that she had some good content. And so I went and I looked at her introduction video, and it is very good. This woman has something to say. And so since then, there's a lot of people that have noticed her. And she has been on MathPic's channel, and she's been on Neil the 604 Atheist channel. And have you been anywhere else?
Critical Cripples channel. And then next month, I'm going to be on the Emphatic Atheist.
Okay, very good. So you're starting to make the rounds and get to know everybody. Very good.
Yep.
Okay. First of all, do you want me to call you Jaded, or do you want me to call you by a different name?
Jade is fine. That's
okay. Jade.
Yep.
Oh, that's your name?
Yep. That's where
okay.
Jaded Atheist came from. It's. Okay. I get kind of a lot of comments about, oh, you're not very jaded. So I'm explaining, yeah, it's my actual name.
Okay. Well, I picked Christianity. Go ahead. I picked my name because I am a grandmother. I have 5 grandchildren. And so if you want to call me Granny, you can. But if you prefer, you can also call me Kelly. So either one goes.
Okay.
All right. Let's start with just a little bit of your story. So how did you come to be an atheist, and how long have you been an atheist? Although I know some people have heard it, but everybody tells the story just a little bit different each time.
Yeah. So it's been about a year now that I've been an atheist. And kind of COVID and our current election discussions with my mom are kind of what brought me out of Christianity, which was kind of a weird journey. So my mom was an avid Trump supporter and doesn't believe that we are in a pandemic, doesn't believe that it's real. And I have a child who's high risk. So we clashed a lot there. And then we clashed on politics a lot. And we have a lot of legislation in our state right now towards anti-trans students being in sports, or towards trans students being in sports. And so I was trying to explain to my mom why this was so harmful, and we did not agree. And her only justification for it was the Bible. So that was kind of a big red flag for me. And then looking into that further, I just couldn't justify a lot of Bible condemned because there was no justification for it besides the Bible. And then I had a talk with my dad because I was kind of questioning lots of things, and we were talking about evolution. And I made the very incorrect statement that if evolution were true, we would see half animals walking around right now. And my dad was like, no, that's not how evolution works. And so then I looked into that a little bit more. And once I found out that evolution was 100% true and did happen, it kind of made me change my mind on everything and take a second look at everything. So that's kind of how I got out of it. And unfortunately, that ended my relationship with that side of my family as well.
Yeah, I've heard that from a number of people that leaving the faith has cost family members. So it wasn't just your mother, it was all of her relatives?
Not quite all. I still talk to two of my aunts on that side. One of my aunts lives in Seattle, and she has been an atheist pretty much her whole life. And so she actually moved away from the family as soon as she turned 18. She moved out to Seattle, and she's never left Seattle. And so I have a really good relationship with her. Our relationship has actually grown throughout this time, because we can connect on a different level now, whereas before I used to kind of judge her because of my family. And then I have another aunt who lives in Iowa that we're not as close, but she does not blame me for not talking to my family. And she understands that I kind of need to just take time to heal from some of the stuff that happened. So she supports me in that. I don't think she necessarily supports all of my decisions. She is a Christian, and so there are definitely things that we do not agree on, but we can at least have a relationship where I don't feel like she's constantly judging me or trying to push her ideas on me. Whereas like my grandma, my other uncle and his wife, and my mom and her husband, there is no middle ground, or let's just agree to disagree, or at least just keep our opinions to ourselves. They're constantly trying to push their opinion on other people's lives. So it was no longer possible to continue, especially when I was trying to deal with the trauma that it's really weird. Some of it I didn't even realize was trauma until now, coming out of it, like finding out things that happened in my childhood weren't normal and other kids didn't experience it and I shouldn't have, has kind of been a hard thing to then go back and like look at certain points in your life and be like, oh yeah, that was not good. So I'm trying to get over some of that stuff, and my mom and especially cannot take any blame for anything. So I was trying to talk to her about what I was going through so that we could continue to have a relationship. And, anything that had to do with how I felt about how she treated me, it was, oh, I'm sorry you perceived it that way, but that's not what I meant. And it was just so like dismissive of my feelings and how I experienced each situation. So it just was not healthy.
I have a personal question for you, and if you don't want to answer that, I perfectly understand, but how old are you?
I'm 28.
28. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. In one way, your story is exactly the reverse of mine. I need to respond to Nikki. Nikki, I thank you. You have done everything you can. And yes, I do appreciate so much that you gave me 2 more subs. I'm sure I'll get 1 more sub eventually, but thank you for doing what you did. But anyway, yeah, your story is a little bit the reverse of mine, because your dad told you that evolution was true. And so then you went and looked it up. For me, it was my child that told me. Now, my child didn't tell me about evolution because I already believed in evolution. But my child told me that that the flood never happened. And that for me was a bit of a shocker. And this is one tip that I give to people your age about trying to reach people my age, is when you tell us that something is true or not true, just give it to us and then let us go find it on our own. With me, my child at the time was only 17. And when he said, well, you realize that it's impossible for the flood to have happened. If nothing else, uh, the methane gas within the boat would have killed them all. And so I went when my son was away, then I looked it up and I found like 4 different articles that all confirmed what he was saying. And I was, oh my gosh, And so then I started looking further into it. That alone was not enough to convince me, but that was enough to get me looking. And the real kicker for me, though, was the history. When I watched an Aaron Ra video, and he mentioned that there are other civilizations that existed through the time of the flood, and they never went extinct. And I was like, I have always known this, because
Yep.
I've known this history from history classes, but I never put it together with, that this is the same time as the flood. And if the flood was real, these people should have gone extinct. I was just like,
Yep.
how did I never put those two things together? But I didn't. I just didn't.
Yeah, I didn't either until watching Aaron Ra's video. That his channel was a huge help, although some of it is still a little above my education level.
Mhm.
But I'm having so much fun learning about science. It's actually so fascinating. I kind of understand why my mom kept me away, because I probably would have really loved it as a kid.
I have the same issue, although mine is probably even greater than yours, because when I started looking into these, the last time I had a science class was in 1979. And there's a lot of things that have been discovered since the last time I had ever looked into anything science related. And so I think it is really funny when I'm on Twitter and all these people keep telling me, well, you believe in science. And I'm like, I don't know very much about science. It wasn't the science that convinced me as much as the history. And so now I'm trying to learn the science, but I know exactly what you're saying. I absolutely love Aaron Ra's phylogeny series. And the first 3 episodes were so hard to get through because the vocabulary was just over my head. But I've told this to a number of people, is stick with it, because the vocabulary remains consistent. And once you get through the first 3, the rest of them get easier and easier as you start getting used to hearing the same words over and over.
I have started watching certain people's videos with a dictionary, so I can look things up as I go. But it's been a lot of fun. I also very much enjoy reading. So
I have one for a new atheist.
yeah.
He's a little bit slower paced, and he tends to explain things on a level that pretty much anyone could understand.
Who's that?
Paulogia.
Oh, yes, I do. Yep, I really like his channel as well.
And we have a theist in the chat. Welcome, Converse Contender. And I've had Converse Contender on the show before. And as I mentioned in one of my videos, he surprised me greatly by not being Converse, but he's actually very congenial. Aaron Ra is also a really nice person. He's extremely approachable. Okay, I think I'm back. Was I out for a minute?
Yep.
I saw myself jump shopping a bit.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
But you're back.
I was just saying that Aaron Ra is really down for being on anybody's channel. He's been on mine a couple of times, and he's been on just about everybody's channel. He'll work you into his schedule.
Oh, cool. That would be. My dad is the biggest Aaron Ra fan, so I think that he would be the happiest person in the world if I could get a stream like that and then bring him on. My dad
Oh,
loves him.
I'm sure he would do it. Yeah, just contact him and just make sure you give him plenty of lead time because he has a pretty full schedule. You might need to schedule it a month out or 2 months out, but he'll come.
That's cool. Yeah, I'll have to do that. That'd be awesome. And he's just so smart. I would love to talk to him. I love his videos as well. It's unfortunate there's only so much time in the day because I'm so far behind on all of these YouTube channels. And now I just keep finding more of them because I go on shows like this. So I'm trying to catch up on all these videos, and there's so many.
You are very right there. I've already reached the point where there's people that I am patrons for, and I haven't seen any of their content in over a month because I just don't have time to watch all of them.
Yeah. But it's awesome because, a couple years ago, I would have never thought that this was a thing. And even when I first started coming out of Christianity and having a lot of questions, I had no idea about this whole community. My dad told me to watch some Aaron Ra videos and some Seth Andrew videos, just because they had been religious and came out. And so they had, particularly they did a tour together, the Unholy Trinity, with Matt Dillahunty as well. And so all of them kind of told their story of being religious and coming out. And hearing that other people had the same questions that I did about religion, and they, kind of thought that things didn't add up either, almost validated the fact that I had that, because it's kind of scary to question that what you believe and have believed for so long is not real. And especially when you're told that questioning God is the same as, saying he's not real, basically, and you shouldn't be doing that. So it was awesome to be able to watch those videos, see that other people felt the same way I did, and then kind of talk through how they came out of it. And that was extremely helpful for me. And then I kind of found the ACA shows through that. But that's kind of, that's all I really knew that was out there for quite a while. And then I put out my introduction video, and more YouTubers started messaging me. And that's when I kind of found this whole other community that has just been so inviting and welcoming. And I've had such a great time doing all of this. It keeps me coming back for sure. Like we actually are just about done on our basement. So I'm almost to the point now of being able to create my own content and kind of get going on my channel. And I'm extremely excited.
Very good. Very good. Within the atheist community, there's also a good-sized transgender community as well. And several of my friends are transgender. I have a trans son. And so that's how I've gotten very close to the trans community as well.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I watch Katie
Montgomery.
Yep. I love her. I watch the Transatlantic call-in show on Saturdays. So that has been very educational, because I'm not going to lie, I did not fully understand that all at first, because I was given a lot of misinformation about that. So watching that has definitely been helpful, and I think they are just adorable and so much fun to watch.
One of my favorite arguments to make with Christians with regards to being transgender is that God made the first trans person. I mean, if you look at the description of how God made Eve, he took the rib of Adam, which was biologically and, genetically male, and from it he made a female. If that is not a perfect description of how you make someone transgender, I don't know what is.
That is so true. I never thought about that. That is a good one.
Another argument I make, even though I really don't believe it, is that in the Bible, that God also made people to be non-binary, because it says God made them male and female, he created them. He's using they, them pronouns on the original human. The only one he's made is Adam, and he says male and female. He created them referring to Adam. So obviously Adam's non-binary.
Yep. Oh, yeah. It's fun to find all the little stupid things in the Bible like that. That now I see. I didn't before. We skipped over that stuff in church.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Another person that it takes a ton of time to check out, but if you ever have any questions about Old Testament history, check out Digital Hammurabi. He is an expert in Old Testament history, and he has a lot of experts on his channel. So whenever I have a specific question about Old Testament history, I can usually find a video somewhere on his channel that addresses it.
That would be interesting as well. I have an uncle who has the gift of prophecy, and he has studied like different languages, and he's trying to find all these ways to make the Bible work, even though it doesn't, basically. And so he will try to like, oh, well, this word translated in the original language meant this, and what that actually meant makes this sentence mean this, and it's just a whole bunch of word games. But it's very hard if you don't know how to just be like, dude, that's bullshit. It's very hard to, like, he will continue to use his big words and his, oh, well, this language and this language, and he thinks he's right no matter what. You can't show him, like, no, you're just pulling stuff out of your butt. And so it'd be nice to know some ways to be like, no, this is factually wrong. It really is.
Yeah, yeah. Another series that I thought was really eye-opening for me was Holy Kool-Aid's series on the Exodus, and he goes deep into some research onto why the Exodus never happened, and the biggest thing that is just the blatant, obvious error is the numbers. The Bible clearly says that there were 700,000 men in the Exodus. Well, there were women and children too. And so if you just count the women and the children, one woman for each man and 1.5 children are, I don't remember if I used 2 children in my example. That puts you at 2.3 million Hebrew slaves leaving Egypt in approximately 1500 BC. And if you look at what was the population of Egypt in 1500 BC, that would be almost the entire population of the country. And so why is it that there are 2.3 million slaves in one area that find it impossible to leave the country when you're almost the entire population of the country?
Yeah, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
I do like Holy Kool-Aid. I haven't seen that series yet, so I'll have to watch that, but I enjoy his videos as well.
There is so much out there.
There is. I think I have like 30 YouTubers like that I'm subscribed to now and trying to catch up on all of them. So there's a lot.
And Tony's given us Holy Kool-Aid's line, yes, be curious, but don't drink the Kool-Aid.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's get back a little bit to your story. When you talk about your mom and dad, I get the impression that they were divorced.
Yes, when I think I was about 17, they got divorced. My mom was a Christian since I was like a kid. She was a drug addict, and so at one point in my life, my grandma was threatening to take custody of me and my sister, and so my mom went to rehab, which my grandma helped get for her. So obviously it was a Christian it was a Christian rehab. And so she attributes getting clean to God. And so from then on, she owed God her life and she needed to show us how to follow God. And so that kind of started our church going. And she kind of just became more and more involved as we got older. My dad started going with us to church, and he went with us for quite a while when I was a kid, and was very active in the church. I remember he was like one of the elders for a little while, and then I don't really know what it was for my dad, to be quite honest. But all of a sudden, he just realized that he didn't believe it either.
Mhm.
And I was probably 8 or 9 around that time. And so I was pretty ingrained in Christianity. And he stopped going to church with us. And so that kind of put a strain on my parents' relationship anyways. But my dad tried to be super respectful of my mom and her faith. And so he let my mom take us to church all the time, and he respected what she wanted to teach us. And, he tried to make it so that him being an atheist wasn't going to be a problem. But unfortunately, my mom had such a terrible opinion about atheists. You can't actually be an atheist because you know that God is real. He wrote it on your heart. You can't be mad or so angry at something you don't believe in. And so, really, she kind of told us that he was actually more a Satanist, um, which terrified me because then I thought my dad was going to hell. And, as an 8 or 9 year old child, like that was really, really scary to me. And so I was kind of angry with my dad for a little while about that. And I think that that also kind of caused tension between my parents because I'm sure he
Mhm.
knew that she was saying things kind of like that. Um,
Mhm.
and so I was constantly trying to save my dad. Uh, and my poor dad, he kind of put up with a lot during that time, especially when he first like stopped going to church because I really wanted to be like, no, dad, you need to come back to God and stuff. Um, but they they wanted to get divorced many times, but they decided to stay together for me and my sister, which, on one hand, I'm super thankful because we did grow up with both of our parents. On the other hand, they were both pretty miserable, I think, for longer than they needed to be. But about 16 or 17, I ended up running away and my parents got divorced shortly after that, I believe. I think that was kind of the ending point. My sister told them basically, you need to get a divorce. You're not happy. And I wasn't there anymore. So they did decide to get divorced. And then my mom ended up getting remarried like 6 months later to a guy in
Mm.
her church.
By the way, I have an announcement to make. I am now at 2,000 subscribers again. So if it
Yay!
is still there next week, when I put the show on the schedule on Sunday, next week's show will be a 2,000 subscriber celebration. So thank you to whoever made that made that 2,000. If you are in the chat, you know who you are that took me to 2,000. Let me know, and I'll put that up there. But thank you so much, everyone. Okay, getting back to your story. Oh, Fran says Fran is going to bring the wine. That
Oh,
that sounds good to me. Yeah, I can relate to a lot of things in your story. First of all, my parents left the church when I was about 7, and before that, they had been Catholic, and they left over the issue of birth control. But they did not disagree. They agreed with each other that they did not want any more children. The church did not allow them to use birth control. So one of them, they either had to get a divorce or get rid of the church, and they loved each other very much, so they got rid of the church. Um,
that's
but
good.
all the time while my mom professed to not believe in any God, she also said, but if you believe, then you have to believe Catholic because that's the one true faith. And I always thought that was weird. There is no God, but if there is a God, it's the Catholic God.
Yeah, that's a lot. So there's someone in the chat that says, sound like some childhood issues helped sway her position. I just want to be very clear. What happened in my childhood is not what made me an atheist. I am now dealing with the
Mhm.
trauma of my childhood, and I have now finally come to the realization that it is trauma and that I should not have been going through that. But that is not what made me an atheist. I'm not angry at God or the situations that I was put in. It's that there is no evidence to support a God. And until someone can show me that there is some, I will not believe it. And now, because I don't believe that, I'm working through my trauma. Two completely separate things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, while you were still a believer, were you a political conservative?
I was, but I was not very active. So my conservativeness did not affect anyone, thank God. But I was like, I just didn't vote. So my family were very anti-government, preparing for the end of the world, doomsday prepper type people.
Mm.
So, you know,
Mm-hmm.
our votes didn't really matter because whoever they wanted to be president was going to be president. Um, whoever this fictional they person was, wanted to be put into law was going to happen no matter what. So it didn't really matter if we voted or were active in politics. I have since realized that is not true, and I am now very active in politics. Um, but yeah, my family really thought that the government was kind of the enemy and trying to control people, and eventually was going to lead to world population control and all sorts of craziness. Um, so I did not vote conservative, but my views were definitely conservative.
Mm.
But
Okay.
it has
Okay.
done a complete 180. Like literally every stance I held politically has changed, which has been a lot of work to study to figure out, okay, what do I actually believe? My views on abortion has changed, on same-sex marriage has changed. Everything that I before so adamantly held um, has changed. So now I'm trying to learn enough to back up those beliefs so that I can explain to the many conservative people around me why they're not good.
I'm going to address a comment in the chat, and I need to give a trigger warning before I do. If you are sensitive to issues with regards to sexual abuse, you might want to tune away for a minute or two. But Slim Cyberg has the comment here that his issue was being molested in Christian school as a child. Also, I've never seen any evidence of being involved in our lives. And, Slim's story is not like my story. However, I have heard stories very similar to Slim's from many people. Um, I, I've been a member of many churches. I even helped found a church. And as an attorney, I worked for an insurance company that insured churches. And we got so many claims for sexual abuse that we had one attorney whose entire job was to handle all of the sex abuse cases from all of the churches that we insured. So it is no small issue. And it is not just a Catholic problem. It is just as much a Protestant problem as it is a Catholic problem. And Slim, I am so sorry that happened to you, and I hope that you are doing better now.
Yes, that is absolutely devastating. And it is not just a Catholic problem or a Protestant problem. I mean, I went to a Baptist church where that was regularly happening, and I went to a non-denominational church where I knew several girls who were being abused, and one girl in particular was abused by the same person 3 times before somebody else stepped in and finally called the police. Because before that, the first time it would happen, the pastor would take the man with a bunch of the elders and pray, and that guy would ask for forgiveness and blah, blah, blah. And then they would tell the girl, oh, he prayed, God forgave him. Now you have to forgive him because that's what Jesus would want you to do. And they would have to continue to see these men. And finally, this one girl, after 3 times of that happening to her, somebody else, I do believe it was her parents, stepped in and called the police and finally pressed charges against him. But it's just covered up so often because they have this idea of, well, you pray and God forgives you, and so it's a clean slate. Unfortunately, that also happened in my family. I have a family member that did something to someone in his family, and it was covered up, and he prayed to God and he was forgiven, and she just had to deal with it. And I did not find out about that until right around the time that I stopped talking to my family as well. So this idea, because my family literally told me that he was not any worse than I was by me having a child outside of marriage. Me having a child outside of marriage was as bad as him sexually assaulting someone in his family. And that's just wrong. Like, no.
And I totally get that. Yeah, but I totally get that, because one of the things that the church teaches is that sin is sin and there is no differentiation. And telling a lie is the same as murder or rape. To them, it's all the same.
Yep.
And one of the things that I find so weird now that I'm an atheist and I'm thinking more clearly about it is all the Christians that say that you can't be moral without God, because now I forgot where I was going with this. Because you need God. I'll get back my train of thought eventually.
Like my family would say, you can't have morals without God. Well, what kind of morals are you teaching if someone in your family can repeatedly sexually abuse someone and continue to get away with, like, what good is his praying to God doing if it's continuing to happen? There's clearly something missing there.
And that reminds me of where I wanted to go with this, was that they accuse the atheist of not taking responsibility for their own actions, saying that, the only reason that you want to be an atheist is so that you are accountable to no one, but we are accountable to God. No, you're not. God forgives you when you do nothing but simply say you're sorry. We are the ones that are accountable for our own actions. That if they are right and there really is a God and there really is a hell, we're the ones that are going to pay for our own sins, and you're the ones that get off scot-free. So let's look again at who's really taking account of, who's really being accountable.
Yeah. And you can be
And I used to hear
anyways.
this all the time in high school. Yeah. I'd rather go to hell. It's more like a party down there. Yep.
Now I would say the same thing. I would have been terrified to say that before. Even the thought of I want to go to hell was a terrible idea in my head.
Couple of things that I would suggest, if you ever have the opportunity to suggest them to your mother, is one of the things that really started me along the path of giving up the conservative ideology was comedians. Particularly Jordan Klepper, Trevor Noah, and John Oliver. John Oliver is so entertaining and, very obviously very, very leftist and very convincing. And so it's really interesting watching some of them.
Yeah, I have watched Trevor Noah. The other two I'll have to check out. Trevor Noah is hilarious.
Jordan Klepper originally was on with Trevor Noah, and then he had his own show at right at the time that I was kind of deconverting. He no longer has his own show, so you may have a little trouble finding him.
Okay.
Oh, and I also
Did he go to the mega rallies and like ask?
yes,
Okay,
yes,
I know who
that's
that is.
him.
That
That's
yes,
him. Mm-hmm.
yes. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
yes, he's hilarious.
Yeah, it is absolutely hilarious watching him interviewing some of these magas, and he is absolutely making fun of them, and they don't get it. They
Yes.
don't realize that he's making fun of them.
Yes, I
Oh.
died watching those videos. Oh my gosh.
Hmm.
And the sad part
And
is
I
it's
want to
what my kids.
introduce you to this is Purple Rhymes with Orange. And she is one of my friends, and she is also a YouTube content creator. And she's someone that you'll want to. I know you've got a ton of people to get to know, but that's one person to get to know as well.
All right, awesome. I do believe I'm subscribed to her channel. I think,
Okay.
but yeah, I'm pretty sure I am, but I'll make sure.
Okay. Then okay, I'm back again.
Yep.
Have you ever heard of the term junk shopping?
I have not.
And one of us is frozen, but I'm not sure which one of us. So I'm just going to talk for sure. Oh. You there?
I can hear you. Yep.
We've got.
I'm here.
Okay, very good. All right. Had a bit of streaming issues. There's another YouTuber, Junk Shop Library, that has had so many issues with the buffering that we've even come up with the term junk shopping. So when someone keeps buffering, we say, "Oh, they're junk shopping."
I have noticed a couple of YouTubers having issues with that lately. YouTube is struggling, it seems.
Well, actually, it has more to do with how good the internet is in the area where the person is, and the area where I am. Our internet is not that good, and particularly, I have a studio. I do all of my work from my studio, and my internet connection is in a different room. And if I moved my stuff to the room where the internet connection is, I would have a slightly better connection, but I would also have a lot of interference from other people coming and going through the room. So it works better to do it from the studio.
I understand. I'm in my son's bedroom today because we're remodeling our home. We just bought a new house and we have to finish the basement. And that's where my husband and I will be sleeping. And that's where my office slash studio area is going to be. But right now, we don't have a lot of spaces that are private and quiet. So I have to hide in a bedroom to do streams usually. Otherwise, it's way noisy in my house.
Mm-hmm.
We always have traffic in and out.
Yeah, that tends to be an issue when you're trying to create something.
Yeah.
Okay, so you say you've been an atheist for about a year now?
Yep.
Okay. Other than issues with family members, have there been any other issues that have resulted from deconverting?
So I have had a couple friends that I have had issues with and have ultimately said goodbye to, though not as many as I thought. I think a lot of people on Facebook just unfollowed me so they don't have to see all of my atheist and transgender posts right now, which is fine. But it has changed my parenting. So that has been kind of difficult for everyone to understand, like my kids. I've been very open with them about my deconversion, and they kind of have experienced what I've been going through as I went along. So they know that I'm trying to change the way that I parent them and the way that I talk to them, even just with more respect. And so I think the fact that I'm open with them has been helpful. But obviously, going from one parenting to a completely different type of parenting gets a little confusing. So we have had some issues there. And then, my husband is extremely supportive. When we got together, he didn't know what he believed. He said,
Mm,
I don't believe in God, but I feel like there has to be something out there. But he had no problems with me being a Christian and me wanting to raise my daughter Christian. He has two boys as well. So uh, he was fine with me teaching them some things about God and stuff like that. We didn't go to church or anything, and I wasn't pushing too hard because at this point in time, at that point in my walk with Christ, I was angry with him. So I wasn't necessarily walking very close in my faith. I just still very strongly believed it. I just was mad, and God and I had some issues we needed to work out. And so now, like, to fully take that out, um, it's uh, it hasn't been hard on our relationship, but because so many of my opinions have been changing, I spend a lot of time, like when I first started finding the YouTube channels, I would spend all day long watching the channels. And even when we were eating dinner, I would have a YouTube video playing for my whole family to hear because my kids were interested in it too. They wanted to know, what I was learning and what I was going through. And it finally got to the point where I was like, okay, can we listen to anything besides atheist content? Um, again, totally get. Um, and, also just looking into things like, okay, can we talk about just like something stupid instead of having all of these deep conversations all the time? Like, I just want to kind of relax sometimes too. And so I've definitely had to take a step back and remember that I am still a mom and a wife, and I need to be present in my home. And I have plenty of time to learn all of this stuff. It just feels like I
mhm,
28 years of catching up to do almost, and I'm super far behind. So I want to hurry up and learn everything. But I think I'm finally starting to learn my how to balance that. But that did there was a little bit of me and my husband had to have a conversation. Like, all right, I know that you're excited about all this, but you need to spend some time with us too. Okay.
mhm, mhm. Has it been difficult for your child at all? Have they seen a difference of you? Do they understand what has changed with you?
Um, so it has. My daughter, she used to go to church with my grandma, um, because I still felt this responsibility to teach my daughter about God, even though I was mad at him at the time. I didn't want her to go to hell, and I didn't want to be the reason I'm going or that she was going to hell. So I did ask my grandma to take her to church. But then around this time, I stopped letting her go to church because I wanted to be the one to teach her about God. I didn't want my grandma's toxic ideas to be put in her head.
Mhm,
And it was already happening.
mm,
She had come home one day and she was talking to my husband, and he said that he didn't believe in God. And she was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, I don't really know what I believe, but I don't really think I believe in, the Christian God or the God of the Bible." And she goes, "Well, you're wrong because God is real and you need to believe in him." Um, and it like I saw this happen and I just saw me. I saw me
mhm,
as a kid arguing with my dad about religion. Um, and it worried me so much. And I was like, no, I don't, even if that is what someone believes, the fact that you can, or like the idea of just saying, no, you're wrong, God is real, is just so rude to do to someone. And so I didn't like that behavior. And that was what my grandma was teaching her to do. So I stopped letting her go to church. Um, and that did, she was mad at me for a little bit. And then when I did finally tell her, you know what, I don't believe in God, she kind of had the same reaction with me, like, how could you, Mom? You know, now you're going to go to hell. And she was very concerned. Um, but we talked a lot. We spent a lot of time talking. She did watch the YouTube videos as well with me. That was kind of we were watching like the call-in shows where Christians would try to explain what they believed, and then we would listen to an atheist YouTuber explain why that didn't make sense. And so once Bella started hearing Christians try to explain their side and seeing how it just logically did not make sense, she started to realize that, yeah, that does seem kind of crazy. And then it did get easier. Um, she really misses my family though, and
Mhm.
I do feel bad about that. But at the end of the day, you know, it was my mom that walked away. Like me and my sister had a video call with her because we just wanted to explain how we were feeling. Um, my sister came out as bisexual officially, and my family did not really accept that. And so she wanted to explain to my mom, like, this is who I am, and I just want you to do a little bit of research into it. And she wanted to give her some articles that showed that um, being homosexual was not a bad thing. Um, and she asked my mom if, like, all she wanted her to do was look into the information. She's like, can I please just send this to you and you read it and then we can talk about it? And my mom wasn't even willing to do that.
Mm.
And so my sister was like, you know, how do I have a relationship with you if you fundamentally do not accept who I am as a person? And my mom said, yeah, you know, I understand that that would be difficult to have a relationship like that. And we were like, okay, so then what do we do here? And she says, well, I guess this is goodbye, and hung up. So we haven't talked to her since then. And yeah, it's, you know, they walked away.
Mhm.
They chose this divide.
Homosexuality is probably, well, I shouldn't say probably, it is the issue that really started me on the journey away from conservatism and toward being more liberal. Now, this was long before I deconverted, but the first thing that sent me on that journey was a book called, it's by Christopher Yuan, and it's called A Prodigal. Let's see, I'll look it up while we're talking, but it's prodigal something. But anyway, he writes, um, um, he writes about um, his journey as he started as a dentist. Well, he was in dental school, and he became a drug dealer, and he also was gay, and but his parents were very Christian. It's called Out of a Far Country. The subtitle is A Gay Son's Journey to God and a Broken Mother's Search for Hope. And it is very much a Christian book. It is not a secular book. And he talks about how, as a gay person, you know, he was a drug addict. And he was very into the gay lifestyle. They call it the gay lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And how he found God when he was caught by the FBI, and he was able to make a deal with the FBI to for either a short prison term or no prison term. I'm not sure exactly what. And you know, during that time, he found God. He becomes a Christian, and he realizes that he is gay, and he always will be gay. He is a Bible professor at Moody Bible Institute, which also is a reason why your mom would be likely to read this book. But it took me from being gay as wrong to some people are gay. That's just the way they are. And he is still very much a Christian, even though he's gay, but he says that gay people have to be celibate. And I realize that that is not a good position to be in. But if you're at a position where you're thinking, gay people are going to hell, gay people should be condemned, it does move you one step.
Mhm.
And then the book that really moved me was Jenkins' book called Mama's Boy, Preacher's Son. And Jenkins is also a Christian, although a lot of conservative Christians would say he is not. But he very much believes in God and very much believes in the Christian religion. But in addition to being gay, he does have a partner, and he believes that the way that he lives his life is very compatible with the Bible. He just interprets the Bible a little bit differently. And once you read that book, that takes you a huge step toward accepting gay people as being just people.
Yeah.
And once I reached that point, that's when a lot of my other conservative views started becoming more and more liberal, as I started realizing that these are real people with real issues. And to just say, this is what the Bible says and that's that just doesn't work for everybody.
No. But my mom and my grandma feel like, they're doing what God says. They're following the Bible to a T. And, they think that even thoughts can be a sin. So if you lust after a person, that's a sin. If you have hate in your heart, that's a sin. So even, if you were homosexual and just didn't act on it, they would still think that the thoughts were a sin that would condemn you to hell. And that's what they have told my sister for most of her life.
Well, ask them if having a thought about being angry condemns them to hell.
They would say they're not angry at me. They're heartbroken, and they're doing this to bring me and my sister back to God. This is tough love.
Aren't they angry about something at some point in their lives?
Oh, I'm sure they are, but they would have some justification for it.
Yeah.
Just like my mom, got divorced and justified it by, there was a verse that's talks about how unequally yoked.
Oh gosh.
Yep. So she used the fact that she was unequally yoked to be able to divorce her husband and have it justified.
My cousin and his wife went through the exact same thing. And when his wife left him for that reason, I was still a devout believer at the time. And I was livid with her for using the Bible in that way when it clearly is a misuse of the verse and in the scripture, although I didn't have a close enough relationship with her to say anything, so I never said anything to her. But yeah, she is not alone. I've seen other people do the same thing.
Oh yeah, I'm sure she got it somewhere and was like, oh yes, okay, here's my way to justify it.
In the Bible, great, you could use it to justify absolutely anything you want to do.
Absolutely. And you can change the interpretation at any time if you want to. Like, oh, I just found out this, so actually this means this, and now I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
There was a episode of Answers in Genesis, AIG News, that I did a response to just a few weeks ago, where they were talking about the fruit at the Garden of Eden and how it came to be known as an apple, even though there's nothing in the Bible to indicate that it was an apple. And this apologist was saying, well, the Latin word for fruit is malum, and so they are, and let's see, how did they get, no, the Latin word for apple is malum. And because there's, a connotation of evil with it, people started connotating the apple with being evil. And so the idea came through that. And it was because of the translation of the Bible into Latin that people started thinking of the fruit as being an apple. And I have to wonder, when they said that, Okay, how many other things that we believe about the Bible came as a result of it being translated into another language? Do you not see that you're undermining your own Bible and how this is supposed to be the Word of God by your own admission that, just the act of translating it brings in foreign ideas to it?
No, they don't see that because they've made a whole lifetime career of spreading the same misinformation, never changing a beat. Like, been proven wrong so many times and stick with the same story.
And purple brings up, and not to mention that no one in the Middle East would have even seen an apple before 1500 CE.
But like when I try to point this stuff out, there's always something that, oh, well, that's just
Mhm.
misread. But you can't even, like, it's just so insane how they can't take a step back and just be like, oh, yeah, that literally could not have happened that way. It's extremely frustrating, but, like, my family thinks that because my uncle is a prophet and they've done all this research that they are, so fundamentally sound in what they believe that there's they're so set in what they think.
Converse Contender asks, how would that undermine the concept? It undermines the concept because if translating the Bible brings in a foreign idea that was not in the original text, then you have to wonder what other ideas have come in as a result. I saw a very similar thing when I went to Ireland and I saw the Book of Kells in a museum, and I saw a drawing in that was, obviously, an illustration that was drawn into the Bible. It had nothing to do with the text. And I can't remember now what the drawing was. This was over 20 years ago. But when I saw that drawing there, I was just taken aback, and I thought, "Oh my gosh, so that's where we got the idea that this is in the Bible, even though it isn't in the actual words." Because at the time, this was the only copy they had. This was the only copy of the Bible in all of Ireland for probably a couple of hundred years. And so, since this is all people are getting from the Bible, then yeah, especially since most of the people were illiterate, the stories are going to, I mean, the pictures are going to have a huge impact on what people think the words say. So, yeah, it
Absolutely.
does undermine it.
Yep. I've heard the same with
Okay.
homosexuality with sorry?
It's okay. I heard only half the sentence, and I didn't want to interrupt you because I figured you were
Oh,
still going and I was junk shopping.
oh, no. I've heard the same said with homosexuality, where it was actually supposed to be about men sleeping with children, and then the church changed it to homosexuality in the 70s, I think. So things have
Hmm.
been
And
mistranslated
then,
or revised so many times, and we can see that clearly.
and you see people doing the same thing with trying to justify why God condoned slavery in the Bible. And, oh, he didn't really condone it, he just permitted it. Well, explain the difference between condone and permit. It's the exact same thing.
And providing instructions on how to treat them and everything. Like, you could have just said, no, no, don't do it. Like you did with so
Hmm.
many other things. Don't commit adultery. Don't worship any other gods. Don't have a slave.
And he could have said, don't rape people. I mean, it
Yes,
would have been
another
pretty
one.
easy to put that into the Ten Commandments. But
Yep.
no, he was more concerned about boiling goats in their mother's milk. Ah,
But the Bible is the moral guideline for society.
right. Okay, let's see. What else? Oh, I was going to mention to you that I have made a couple of videos on atheism for children. Now, from what you've described, if your child is able to watch Aaron Ra and some of these other things, then my videos may be too young for your child because mine are aimed at like a 6-year old.
Oh no, she actually watched your introduction video with me and wants to subscribe to your channel. She loved that you were sitting there knitting and rocking and oh hello, and she just thought you were so cute. So
The two children's videos in there, one is called "Hey Mom, What's an Atheist?" and the other one is "Granny, Why Are Some People Atheists?"
okay, yeah, I'll have her watch those because she loves, and she also loves watching anything that I have been in. So she's watched most of the um, streams. So she's watching right now, but she does like those videos. And then I have a 4-year-old niece who likes to watch um, just anything with me. She doesn't really understand what she's watching, but if
Mhm.
it's for younger kids, then she would probably love
Hello, Jade's daughter.
it.
Um, let's see. Now, do you work outside the home?
I do not anymore. During COVID, I actually got a great job where I get to work from home. So that has been helpful. My kids are doing the did the virtual academy this last year. So I was able to work at home and help them for most of it. I did work outside the home for a short while, but um, now I'm here all the time.
Okay. And have you had any issues with work as a result of your atheism?
No. Um, I don't think that my boss knows, but I also don't think that he would care. I work for a company that's based out of California. And so everything that we do is online, and I work with cryptocurrency. So what I believe doesn't really come up ever.
Okay.
And I got the job through my sister's boyfriend, um, which he is also an atheist, and we agree on like everything. So he's who I talk to most of the time, and he does not care at all. And watches these with my sister and fully supports my atheism and my wanting to speak out. It's really funny. Him and my husband are just really like shocked sometimes when they hear me and my sister talk about the things that my mom or my grandma has said to us or things that we've gone through. And so they both kind of have this anger towards my family as well. Um, and so they're really glad that we don't see them anymore because they're like, oh, if I saw them now, I would just have so much to say. Um, so they're both so supportive of both of us telling our stories and trying to deal with um, everything that we're kind of going through right now. So I haven't had any negative impact there. Um, just between my family and then my husband's family also is a little bit more religious. They do not care at all that I'm an atheist. They don't care at all that I want to do this. We just don't talk about it. Um,
Hmm.
and we also don't talk about politics because we don't agree on that either. So when it does come up, it becomes a heated conversation that we just have to stop talking about.
Yeah, when I was at my niece's wedding just this past weekend, there were a lot of people there that were very religious, and we just smiled and nodded our heads a lot.
Yes.
Oh, the one big shocker for me though was when I went to a restaurant and the waitress at the end of the meal said, "God bless you." And I'm thinking, now why would you say that?
Yes, I used to I used to be a server like that. I would write God bless you at the bottom of my tickets and then
Mm,
or have a blessed day and give that to I used to be a server for a while when I was a single mom and I did that all the time. I look back at some of the things I did and was like, "Oh gosh, so sad."
I was a very obnoxious Christian.
I
I
was
definitely was. And so when some people ask me, why are you such an obnoxious atheist, although they don't use that word, I don't usually come right out and say it, but the answer is I was just as obnoxious as a Christian. And if I'm going to shove this religion down people's throats, then now it's time for me to reach down those throats and pull it back out again.
Yes. I said something like this, very similar. Like, I went into many things. I did so many missions trips and so many opportunities where I went out and tried to bring people to Christ. And so now, as an atheist, if I can bring even half of those people out of Christianity, that would be awesome. Like, I would feel like I counteracted a little bit, made up for my my bringing people to Christianity, because that's just terrible now.
I like Jenny Morgan's answer. I write "God bless you" on the toilet paper rolls. Actually, my response to people who say "God bless you" is "live long and prosper." And most people take that very much in the spirit in which it is intended, that I don't believe in God, but I do wish you well, and so just live long and prosper.
There you go. Yes,
Mhm.
it doesn't have to always be God. God does not have to be
Mhm.
brought into every single aspect, but it was before. So taking him out of everything has been weird.
One thing and I know this isn't just me, this is a lot of people, is trying to normalize atheism. I have a number of shirts that I like that have atheist slogans on them. If you haven't yet met Godless Engineer, he is one of the people that got me started on my channel. You know who he is?
I've watched his videos. I haven't met
Okay.
him, but I have watched a
Okay.
lot of his videos.
Okay. I have one of his "What's Up Heathens" t-shirts. Now, those t-shirts are no longer available because somebody claimed that they have a trademark on that phrase and sent him a cease and desist order, so he can't sell any more of those shirts.
Oh,
But I have a "What's Up Heathens" t-shirt with his face on it, and I love it. I like wearing it, and I also have my own Godless Granny line of shirts that I frequently wear. But I'm also very conscious of, well, I don't want to offend anyone, and so I won't wear those shirts to certain places or when I'm going to see certain people. And I will not wear those shirts for work because they are completely inappropriate for work. Any religious idea would be inappropriate for work, and I
yep.
get that. That's no problem. I won't wear those shirts there. But I also think, some places that I have not been wearing those shirts, I would have worn a Christian shirt to those places, or I would have worn a church shirt. And I'm thinking, if a church shirt is acceptable, then an atheist shirt should be equally acceptable.
Yep. I got an atheist YouTuber shirt from Tang, and I wore
Hmm.
it to Walmart here because I just wanted to be fun. So I brought the shirt just to wear it into Walmart, put it on, walked around Walmart. And I live in South Dakota. It is a very conservative state. Everyone around me at least claims to be religious if the question comes up. So I got kind of a lot of looks, but I that is kind of why I started all of this, to normalize atheism in my community without really realizing that that was my goal. I just wanted to find more people that believed like I did, because any of the friends that I had considered themselves Christian. And so when I was changing all of these ideas that I believed and I was talking to my friends about it, they were like, oh my gosh, what's happening to you? You're becoming this whole different person. And they didn't agree with me. And not that I have to have everyone in my life agree with me, but especially when learning new ideas, it's nice to have someone that does understand those things that you can talk to about it. And so I started with a Facebook group, South Dakota Secular Society, and I
Mm.
wanted to just find people in South Dakota that were atheist. And I even used secular to try and soften it because, people are just so scared of that atheist word. Um, and I have had some people from South Dakota join. more than I thought, but a lot of it has just been people now from YouTube that have joined the group, and they may or may not live in South Dakota, which is totally awesome because they have been sharing their own content in the group. But it's just really hard to find people around here. So I'm hoping that once COVID is a little more under control and people are vaccinated, that I can start getting groups of people together to go out in our community and start volunteering. Because around here, it's just, the homeless shelters are Christian, the food banks are Christian, any volunteer organizations are Christian. And I don't want to be a part of that. I want to help people without having the stipulation of God, like, oh, yeah, I'll give you food as long as you listen to a Bible story first. Or, that's,
Mm-hmm.
we can help without forcing religion on people. So that's ultimately what I want to do. And then we also have a huge problem here with homosexuality being severely frowned upon. And right now, like I said, we're actively trying to fight against transgender rights. So there are a lot of parents in Sioux Falls that unfortunately are doing very harmful things to their kids for that reason. And it's not uncommon at all for parents to kick their kids out around here for being homosexual. And I don't fully know how yet, but I want to be there for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still trying to figure out exactly how I can do that and how I can help. But it's kind of my goal here, and kind of what started all of this. And then it blew up into a YouTube channel and talking about my story. And I didn't think anybody would care, honestly. Like, I don't think it's that great. And I just, I'm just like, why does anybody care what happened in my life? But so many people can relate, and not a lot of people are willing to talk about it out loud. Which I'm not going to lie, it has been very scary for me. And I worry every day that, my family's going to find my YouTube page or find one of my videos and message me about it. But it's also helping me deal with it, and it's helping me get through my trauma. And I think that if I can be vulnerable and show how hard and yet so satisfying and so freeing it can be, that maybe more people, especially around here, who have been in situations like mine, can find their way out.
I can totally relate to what you're saying because I live in Alabama. And yeah, it is. I am definitely in an extreme minority here, but even here in Alabama, there is a free thinkers group that meets twice a week. At least they did until COVID hit. And they do a lot of political activism for the homosexual community, for the transgender community. And they don't have anything specific for homeless people, but they do a lot of the things that you were talking about. And you're absolutely right that one of the things that the atheist community is working on is letting people realize that atheists are people too, and we have a heart, and we feel for other people as well. In fact, that's really what led me to deconvert, was when I started thinking about the billions, not millions, the billions of people that are supposedly going to hell. And God either can't or won't do anything about it. And so many people will say, well, it was their choice. It was their choice. Bullshit.
Yeah.
If God can fix the problem, he isn't. And so it comes down to, if you have an all-powerful, all-knowing God, he either can't or won't save the vast majority that he knows are going to hell.
And that he loves so much.
Yes, yes. Now, in one respect, I find the Calvinist more realistic because they come right out and say, no, God made the choice. God chose before the foundation of the world that some are going to heaven and some are going to hell. But on the other hand, the Calvinist form of religion also says that God destined these people for hell even before he created them. And he created the vast majority of people so that he could torture them for eternity as vessels of his wrath. And think, what kind of evil monster God do you serve?
Right? Loves human sacrifice and sending people to hell for eternity, because gets kicked out of that. That's, yeah.
Now, I have met some people who have a much more what I would call palatable and realistic faith, but they don't hold firmly to the Bible. They don't say that the Bible is the inerrant word of God, that that there's some good ideas in the Bible, and that is a spirituality that I can accept, because it's not based on a rigid, you have to believe this or else. The other thing that really I find mind-boggling is that Christians think that they have free will and hell exists, and if you do not exercise the correct free will choice, you will be tortured for eternity. What kind of free choice is that if there's coercion involved?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I don't understand it anymore. And it, like, I used to believe it. It's so hard for me to listen to these things now and be like, oh yeah, I used to say that. How did I
Don't
believe
beat yourself up for too much, because I am 60 years old
that?
and I was in the religion for 42 years. I converted at 16 and I deconverted at 58.
That is a long time.
Mhm.
I get it though, especially when religion uses, and this was, my case especially, the times when I really became close to God, was during the hardest times in my life, because then the church would all of a sudden, really care just about you and would want to be there to help you and want to show you that Christ was working through this difficult time. And so you start to attribute all of your like your bad
All of the
moments and
good
then
things
coming
that
out of
happen.
it to God.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm.
And when you think that God is the reason you've gotten through all of this stuff, it's hard to be like, okay, I can get through this without God. I really can,
Mhm.
because he's not there. And I've been doing it on my own this whole time, but just not realizing it. That's kind of been a hard thing to switch around in my head too. So it
Mhm.
definitely, I did have a couple weeks of, okay, I really truly do not believe this stuff, but gosh, am I so scared to say that I don't believe it. Like,
Mm.
it was so
Mhm.
terrifying for me, especially with the idea of hell. That was something that my family taught, we would go to hell. Um, and so that was, it's like, I don't believe this. I really don't. But gosh, I'm so scared of hell. I don't want to admit it or say it out loud.
That's very common, and I had someone in my chat on several of my streams a long time ago who came in, and he was an atheist, but he really had a hard time letting go of the idea that hell was a possibility. Recovering from religion is really good with that, helping people work through some of those ideas.
I have been encouraged to call them so many times. I really need to. Mental health has also been something that I'm struggling with. That was in our church. You shouldn't need to go to a counselor or be on medication. You should have a better walk with God. So if you're struggling or going through depression or anything like that, there's something wrong with your walk, and you need to pray. And so I have dealt with depression on and off throughout my whole life, but have never addressed it or dealt with it. And so once I got out on my own, I did go on medication for a short period of time for my depression. And my mom and my grandma made me feel so bad about it,
Mhm.
that I immediately got off. And then they encouraged me to go to a Christian counselor to try and help fix my relationship with God so I was not feeling depressed anymore. Um, And this Christian counselor also encouraged me to, improve my diet and get more exercise and take vitamin D, and all of these things would help with my depression. And then obviously, praying and being in the Bible every day. And, these were the things that were supposed to naturally cure me, because you should be able to get better. I have now got on antidepressants again, and I have been on them for, I think, 4 months regularly. And it has helped me so much. I see a huge difference, but I'm still having a hard time accepting that I need to be on them. So even
Mhm.
when I need to go pick up my prescription, I will prolong it till the last minute because,
Mm.
I've been on them for a whole month. I'm like, oh, I'm doing really well. Maybe I don't need to get the next month. Maybe I have kind of figured this out. So it's really been hard to remind myself that this is something that I need. This is not something that is going to go away. It is okay for me to be on medication. It is okay for me to experience depression and anxiety. Um, and it's getting easier, but being able to talk to someone is still very hard. And it's weird because, I can get on here and I can give a brief overview of my story and I can talk about some of the traumatic things that happened. But there is definitely so much more that um, that happen. I'm sorry, that I'm dealing with that I cannot talk about. Things that I haven't even talked with my husband about at this point in time. Um, and so I know that going to a counselor is going to be beneficial for me. I am just extremely scared of taking that step. And I also think that some of it is I don't know if I'm ready to deal with some of the trauma, and I'm kind of scared to go talk to someone and have some of these things come up that I maybe am not prepared for coming up. But I do need to, and it is getting easier for me to realize this is just something that I need to do.
Um, one of the things I mentioned to my counselor just earlier today is that I think it should be a requirement that all people have a counselor that they go to at least once a month. Because for one thing, if everyone went to a counselor, there would be no stigma about going to a counselor. And second, if you already have a minimum of a monthly appointment with a counselor, then when something does come up, you've already got an appointment, you've already got somebody in place and somebody that you have a rapport with that can help you with it. Um, and I think mental health counseling should be a requirement, not something that you only do when you have an issue. Just like you go for a physical with your doctor, you should have at least at bare minimum a quarterly mental health checkup.
I agree. I think that would help people in such a tremendous way, more than I probably even realize. But every counselor that I have been to has been a Christian counselor, so it has
Mhm.
not been helpful in any way. But like my sister is going to counseling or has gone to counseling. I don't know if she's still in it, and it has been very helpful for her. So she is
That's good.
constantly encouraging me to talk to a counselor. She texts me to remind me to go pick up my medication, um, and asks me
Good.
regularly, "Are you taking it? Have you taken it today?" So she's definitely helping keep me accountable, but it's getting easier for me.
Okay, and we are getting to the end of the show, and so whenever I end a show, I ask us to let us know to shill for anything that you might have coming up on your channel, or if there's a different channel or something else that you want to promote, go ahead and promote yourself and anything else that you might want to promote.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me on. I'm on YouTube as Jaded Atheist, and I'm also on Twitter as Jaded Atheist. And then I also have a Facebook account, South Dakota Secular Society. It's not necessarily tied to my YouTube stuff, but I try to post all the live streams of YouTubers that I follow on South Dakota Secular Society, so that everyone there can watch them. I'm going to be on Emphatic Atheist next month. I believe it's the 15th, but I'm going to have to double check that. I'm super excited to talk to him as well. And then I am hoping that within the next month here, I can start making my own content. And I have quite a few ideas, but I think purity culture is kind of what I'm going to start with, and possibly mental health as I kind of go through that. But yeah, that's kind of all I've got right now.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you to everyone in the chat. The produced video that I have coming up this week is going to be on the new Texas abortion law. It is the craziest law that I have ever seen in my life. Spoiler, available for only people who watch my channel. This law allows anyone on the planet to sue anyone who aids or abets in an abortion in Texas. So, as a retired attorney, I'm going to be discussing some of the legal aspects of this crazy, crazy law. And what I'm going to be doing next week. We just hit 2,000 subscribers today. Thank you very much, Nikki. And so as long as I still have 2,000 subscribers on Sunday, next week's stream will be a 2,000 subscriber celebration. So thank you, everyone in the chat. You have been so helpful, and you've added so much to this conversation. And thank you so much, Jade. It has been a pleasure having you on the show, and you are a very interesting person to talk to. And do not give up, because we are going to normalize atheism in this country.
Thank you so much for having me on. I enjoyed myself as well.
Live your life.